We're live,
We're live.
and it's not Memorex. Hi, I'm John Thomas, and I've got someone with me that's going to share her name and title. What's your name, little girl?
Hey, well, I haven't been called a little girl for a very long time, but I kind of like that. So, my name is Cece Shatz, and I've been fondly called the Doyenne of relationships, but I'm also the president of Going Solo Network. So, we are here on WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. We are a radio, TV, and a podcast station. We're the number one internet talk network, and everything can be found right there on goingsolomedia.com. But I think we've got something kind of cool we're going to talk about today. Isn't there something neat out there that we're going to talk
Yes,
about?
absolutely. Thank you for the cast off there. The the idea. Well, I'm John Thomas, and I have a radio show here with Cece. She invited me to join in, and we put together and produced a radio show that I'm sure will be the delight to those who love music. It's called Music for Your Soul, and as that is the expression there, I talk about how music affects all of us around the world. And we're human beings, and music touches us in so many levels, so many platforms, so many crevices of our hearts and minds, memories and whatnot. So uh, we have the show Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays from 7 a.m. till 10 a.m. And we'd like to have people come on and chat with us on our chat box. But today we're focused on something else. We're focused on an interview with a brand new friend that we found in my search. I was doing some research for my show on a certain topic, and I came across this gentleman's blog. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce him, DJ Rob. How you doing, sir?
Hi there. Hi, John. How are you doing? Hi, CC.
Hello.
Good to
Yeah,
see you
listen,
both.
like we said, we're excited to have you on board here in this interview. And I want to get into the crux of it. Before I do, I want you to give us a little bit of who you are, what you do, and what you've been doing. So go ahead and take the mantle there.
Well, first of all, thank you both for having me. I look forward to our discussion here, and thank you, most importantly, for discovering the blog and reading it and supporting it and hopefully enjoying it. As you said, John, my name is DJ Rob. My full name is Darrell Roberts, but I go by the moniker DJ Rob. Um, I am not a DJ. So the DJ actually stands for my first two initials, and then Rob being short for Roberts. But I figured it was somewhat opportunistic for me to use those initials since it is tied to music. The blog is that is, and it lends a little bit more credibility to the blog site, perhaps. And quite frankly, I have had interest in DJing and did some mixtapes and things as a kid and a younger adult. So, I guess you could say that that's, somewhat DJ related. Um, and as far as the blog is concerned, I have been writing, or I founded djrobblog.com back in January of 2015. It was actually on the suggestion of a friend of mine who had seen a write-up that I did about a concert that I had attended back in that time frame, in the January time frame of 2014, 2015. And I had posted that write-up on Facebook, and the person was impressed with it and said, hey, you ought to consider writing a blog and putting all your musical thoughts in your own platform, type of thing. And I did the research, and voila, here I am, 8 years later, having written about 753 articles in total in the last 8 years and 2 months. So I've had some great articles. I've had some not so great ones, perhaps, based on readership, but they cover a wide range of genres and generations and topics, and everything ranging from news to album reviews, concert reviews. I just attended a concert 2 nights ago to see the 70s singer-songwriter, Gilbert O'Sullivan, Irishman, who had a huge #1 hit 51 years ago and has had, some success since then. Perhaps not as much as what he had half a century ago, but he's still very young at heart and was very entertaining in this concert that I attended 2 nights ago and wrote an article or a review of that concert in my blog that I posted yesterday. So you may or may not have seen that. He's a pop rock artist, if you will, and I've covered everything from pop rock to hip hop and everything in between: country, R&B, soul, new wave. I've even delved into death metal at one point, and covered an act that I found interesting in that genre. And just it all stems from my genuine love of music. I have loved music since I was a toddler, perhaps. There are pictures of myself surrounded by vinyl albums, LPs that my parents bought as a baby. So I probably got it naturally. I would say that most of my love of music came from my mom, who was buying records, all the time when I was a kid, and I watched those records spin around on the turntable and just be in awe of the music that was coming out of them. And then eventually I developed a love for the music itself and found my own niche, if you will, in terms of what I liked musically. And that expanded as I moved around the country and the world. As a military kid, my dad was in the military and we moved around a lot. So I was exposed to a lot of different types of people and music and you name it. So it all came naturally. And, 50 something years later, here I am.
Well, yeah, it's a great lineup of information about yourself, and I really appreciated the fact that you mentioned once that you love the written word,
Yes.
and that's it goes along with creative minds, and it goes along with people who have a heart for not only the thought but the printed word, the written word. And as well as it goes along with the lyrics of music. Let's face it. I believe lyrics of music is something that's poetry set in motion, and to further on the heart's desires and stuff. I've dabbled in poetry myself, and even someone asked me one time when I wrote a poem for this couple. And she said, would you sign it? I said, why would I want to sign it? I thought it was a contract or something. She goes, no, I just want to sign it because I want to keep it. I said, oh, thank you. Well, I appreciate it. It was a great honor for someone to say that.
Right.
But the thing is, it goes along hand in hand very much. So I'm sure you agree. But I want to touch on briefly in the next few minutes here, why or how I discovered your blog. And it was a research that I was doing for Blue Eyed Soul. And what I came upon was more than I ever expected, based on the numbers of people, the individuals, and who were the forerunners of the Blue Eyed Soul kind of movement. And some of them shied away from it, didn't like it because they thought they were standalones or whatever. But it has to stick where it wants to stick. They're Blue Eyed Soul entertainers. So speak to that if you would, please.
Yeah, I can't recall exactly what inspired me to write that particular article, the one you're referring to. I think I wrote that maybe almost 8 years ago, perhaps in the first year of the blog. I remember one artist in particular, perhaps I discovered really late in the game, was actually a white artist. One that growing up, I probably heard the song many times and thought he was a black artist, just based on his sound and his intonation. And that was Lynn Berry.
Yes.
Of 1, 2, 3 fame,
Yes.
1963 or 5, one of those years. That I as a child, as a young adult, throughout life, I've heard that song a million times, perhaps, and never even thought twice about what the person's ethnicity or race was, and then I just stumbled on that on his background around that time. I guess it was maybe 8 to 10 years ago, and I remember marveling over the fact that that song was by, and it sounds, you know, it's strange to say it this way, but that was by a white artist. And so I remember using that as the lead in sort of to that article. And then, as you indicated, John, there are so many artists so many white artists who have explored the soul and R&B sound, if you will, and have themselves labeled as blue-eyed soul artists. I don't think the term is as in vogue now as it used to be, but there were so many of them, and I discovered several more of those as I was researching the article. And then I tend to like lists. I tend to like ranking artists and songs and albums based on my somewhat subjective views about music, but also based on some objectivity, using chart data and other people's views and polls and whatnot to come up with an overall ranking of where artists stand on the overall list of things. And so with Lynn Berry and several other artists, I decided to put that list together, and voila, there you were.
Yes, a phenomenal article, and news to me when you brought in the idea of the person who didn't want the title, Len Berry. I'm to understand that he said, that's not for him, or whatever statement he made about it, but he kind of pushed it away. And it was his feeling, his thought. But for us, I recall as a teenager, especially, I had a transistor radio with my little earplug. I'd go to sleep every night with listening to the local radio station, WBBS in Rochester, New York. And my dad would be upset with me because I had my radio on all night, and I'd run down the battery, and he had to go out and buy new batteries for me. So, but needless to say, that my love of music, it was constant from when I first could remember. But and the point I'm getting to here is the fact that the history of my personal experience and history of it is I could tell the difference when the blue-eyed soul artists came in. I mean, I absolutely enjoyed the Temptations, and I got my head full of all the Motown sounds and all the things. But to hear it come from the band or the individual of a white group, I'm going, holy cow, they've got something. Yeah, and I often say, well, they were modeling after their peers or the people they looked up to.
No doubt.
Who wouldn't look up to Stevie Wonder or the Temptations, or it's just one of those things that you cannot escape. The idea of blue-eyed soul being a reflection of and a admiration for the music of Motown and such, and Berry Gordy and what he did. So
exactly. It's interesting you brought this article up. 3 days or so ago, that article experienced a spike in readership. I have a stat tracker that tracks the number of clicks that all of my articles get and on a daily basis. And that one in particular happened to see a spike or an increase in readership 3 or 4 days ago. And it just so happens that it coincided with the passing of another blue-eyed soul artist, Bobby Caldwell, who died late last week, I believe it was. And that spike in that article's readership was no doubt tied to the fact that he was one of those artists that were ranked on that list, and who people probably searched through Google and found and landed on my particular article. So that was not so much of a surprise when I learned, the circumstances behind that. And then I wrote a tribute to Mr. Caldwell on the next day. So that article was posted separately as well.
I have to look at that and because I do enjoy your writing, and it's one ready to another. I really appreciate how you put thoughts and together on paper. So
Thank you.
it's an
Appreciate that.
appreciation I have. But yeah, that's where we have kind of some tracks, same tracks going down the same train, headed towards the same destination, I guess you would say.
Right.
And Cece, we want to include you in this conversation.
Thank you.
No, I'm sorry about that.
Well, I'm enjoying it.
But the whole thing is that I know you enjoy music. Cece and I go out to karaoke once in a while, and I've been trying to encourage her to sing with me on a duet. And it's hard. It's hard when somebody does.
Yeah, it's hard when you're listening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been to more than my share of karaoke bars in recent years.
Tell us a little bit about your experience with the music. I mean, I know you have memories from music of past.
Oh, me? Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think for me, it was really my mother. My mother had a tremendous love of music, and she would be able to hear. She was one of those special people that you'd be able to hear something, and then she'd go and get like a new album, like something would come out, like Jerry Lee Lewis or something like that, right? And she would come out and bring the album home or the record home, and she'd play it over and over and over and drive us mad. But we loved it, so we'd listen to it, listen over and over again. Then she'd sit down at the piano and play it, just like as if she was, had done it for years. And she was just a natural and very, very good. She could sing like Patsy Cline. She was she was a fabulous singer. And she was just a real natural. It's a shame, I think, that she didn't really get into the music industry, but we kind of found our way there through her, I believe. And so, yeah. And then, so we had like our own turntables, when we were kids, right? We had our own record players and things like that. So do you have a record player now?
Me?
Yeah.
I do. I have a turntable. I have a full component set, actually. That happens to be not with me right now. It's in my place in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had that same component set, which consists of a turntable, a CD player, dual cassette player, an amplifier, a preamplifier, a radio, I forget what they call the radio part of it. Tuner, I guess, and speakers. I've had that since 1985.
Wow. Yeah.
The CD player was added later, but no later than 1992, I think. So I've had that hodgepodge of equipment since 1985. I bought it in my sophomore year of college because I felt like I wasn't able to compete with my dorm mates for blasting each other out when it came to whose music was the loudest on the dorm floor. So I bought that in the summer between my freshman and sophomore years at college, and it's been with me ever since.
Yeah, I think it's great. I know we listen to a lot of music digitally. We do it on the internet and whatnot, and that's great. We hear it in the radio in the car, but it's just not the same, than that turntable, right? Listen, putting that vinyl on, and it's just there's just something about that. There's something said about that. And I know I don't have one now, but I know, John, you got one.
Oh, well, someone gave one to me for Christmas. I think her name was Cece.
Yeah, I gave him a
It was a gift. It was one of those, the combination of turntable, AM, FM, cassette all together, and it's in a wood cabinet, very nice cabinet. And I'm asked from time to time, am I using it? Of course, I'm using it. We were driving around the area here, and there was a yard sale, and she said, "Oh, stop and see if there's some records." Well, lo and behold, there are 2 boxes of old records. We're talking very, very old. I say back in the 60s, and some of them were music, and some of them were classical. But for the most part, I kept what I knew I liked. And I'll tell you what, I listen to all of that. I'm eclectic when it comes to that. So the turntable idea, I think maybe now it's fading out, but when it came out, people were buying because of the vinyl. The vinyl
I
is
think it's
still
coming
in.
back. I
Well,
think the
vinyl,
turntables.
yeah, I don't know if you both are aware of this or not, but vinyl has been on a resurgence here since
Mhm.
at least 14 consecutive years, according to the data that I've read. Billboard magazine, of course, covers this, constantly, but every year since 2005 or six, maybe, well, a little later than that, maybe late 2000s. Vinyl has had year over year increases in both units sold and revenue since that late 2000s period. So at least the last 14, 15 years. In fact, it's now outselling CDs in unit volume and revenue. So CDs have been on the decline for the last 21 or 2 years, and vinyl has, since the late 2000s, has been on a rise. Astonishing to me, because if you had told me 35 years ago, when vinyl was overtaken by CDs, that there would be a reversal of that, that fortune, I would have just betted against it. I'd have never expected vinyl to come back at the way it has.
Yeah.
It's now, a viable medium for listening to music again.
Yeah, it is, and it's distinctive because of this. Sometimes you get a scratchiness, and you on the record or whatever, and you're just listening to this piece of vinyl circling around, and there's something unique to that. And it's just more, to me. It's more home front. It's embedded in your soul. The kind of music that came out of those little boxes with the vinyl turning, and the astonishment to me. Now, I have to admit that when I was a teenager, my mother had purchased about three or four Elvis albums, and we always had music in the house. We had this turntable in the TV kind of console set, and she would play it all the time. The Elvis. I couldn't stand Elvis. I didn't like him at the time. Of course, I've changed my attitude towards Elvis, but the thing was, as a teenager, I couldn't. It was pop music or nothing.
Yeah.
Elvis was out of touch. So anyway, it was but knowing, and I got to play my music on there too from time to time, and I remember the 45s. It was the 45 generation that led us along in our musical journeys.
Oh, I cut my teeth on 45s, and my mom's albums and my 45s, and it was I still have every 45 I've ever vinyl 45 single I've ever owned.
Wow.
Still up
That's
there in
phenomenal.
Chicago. Yeah, and an interesting story here. When I was 9 or 10 years old, growing up in Virginia, one of my best friends and I were out in the playground playing, and we stumbled on a stack of 45s that someone had thrown away on the playground. Just dumped a whole boatload of 45s on the playground. We picked them up and divided them between us, and I took my half, he took his half, and I still have my half of that stack of 45s. It was probably about 50 45s to this day. And one of these days, I'm going to write an article about those very 45s that I found, like those exact 45s. They were contemporary hits of the day. So they were probably, this was 1976 when this happened. So it's probably,
Wow.
singles from the 74, 75 time frame. And so one of these days, maybe on the 50th anniversary of that or something, I might write an article about that.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Yeah.
So how do you find the information that you write about? Like, what strikes you, to write this article about this particular artist? Or do you have does something just happen and then
Well, I'm
pique
always
your interest?
I'm always scouring the internet for news, current events, some happening that's occurred that I think might be of interest to readers. I have a tendency to write more about older music, and so I've got to be careful and mindful of the fact that a lot of people don't want to read about stuff that happened 50 years ago, especially in the current generation. So I've got to keep things fresh to a degree. I've got to, for example, if Rihanna is doing the Super Bowl, I need to make sure I cover that, right?
Yeah.
To at least get some readership there. And I'm probably selling myself short here, or selling the older artists short, because there's still an audience for the older music. I probably should rescind my earlier comment. When I wrote the article about Bobby Caldwell, for example, passing away, that article generated 1,000 clicks in 2 days. And so it was one of those where, okay, people, want to read about this artist that they, may have heard about, but didn't really know a lot about, or didn't know the circumstances behind what, caused him to write the song he wrote that became the big hit, that kind of thing. So I tend to like to just focus on current events or anniversaries of major happenings from years ago, like milestone anniversaries, 40th anniversaries, 50th, or whatever. Someone's death, of course, will generate some interest if it's an artist that I'm either familiar with or think that others might be interested in knowing a little bit more about. I try to provide as much. I try to educate. So I try to find nuggets of information that I think, while it may be available on the internet, it might be presented in a way that is nuanced, so that people are actually captured by it, riveted by it, or draw a connection between certain events that others might not have drawn a connection to, and then, go from there.
Okay, I think we're coming up on a break here, and we're going to come right back and talk to our guest today, DJ Rob, founder and owner of the music blog. The site is djrobblog.com, djrobblog.com, and check him out. His writing is phenomenal. So let's go ahead and take our break, and we'll be back in a moment.
All right.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, give me your ear. I got something for you to hear. Yeah, right here on GoingSoloMedia.com. A new radio show. John Thomas is the host. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Listen in. Right here, WGSN-DB. GoingSoloMedia.com.
Hi, I'm John Thomas. I want to share with you a professional products and services directory we call Going Solo Directory. And you need to check this out. If you want exposure to your business or are seeking professional product or services, this directory has it all. And that membership, for the many special features, you get the benefit of a worldwide exposure with a 40-minute video interview on an international business show showcase. All this for just one low annual fee. For more information, contact GoingSoloDirectory.com. Yeah, we're back, and our guest today is DJ Rob, and he has come to us by way of some searches I did on the internet regarding a topic I was looking to resource for some material I had for my radio show. So, DJ Rob, tell us more about your future plans. I know you're retired. You're retired from a certain industry, and let us know what you have in store for yourself or what you'd like to do.
Well, one of the things, you mentioned my retirement. I did retire from my day job. of 33 and a half years. I worked for the federal government Nuclear Regulatory Commission, which is the agency that licenses and regulates the civilian uses of nuclear materials in this country, including 92 currently operating nuclear power plants. So you probably couldn't have had a more divergent set of interests as I've had, having been a very technical person with that job, and then sort of, delving into the liberal arts with my blog job or my blog. I shouldn't call it a job. It's more labor of love than anything else. But I did retire from that job in December. So I'm still sort of freshly retired here, newly retired. I told myself that when I did that I was going to concentrate a little bit more on the blog, a little bit more on some of my other aspirations, which include, maybe getting into voice more. I've always been told that my voice was, I had a great radio voice, and, maybe I could do what you're doing one of these days, or voiceover work or what have you. So that's one of the things that I'm going to be exploring here pretty soon. I am also doing some other work currently, some consulting work and some other things that I've been doing since I retired. So I'm staying busy. I'm not fading away like a flower or anything like that. I'm basically going to try to keep my brain engaged and use some of my other what I consider a gift. The gift of voice. As with writing is something that if you have it, you should try to use it and don't let it go to waste.
Yeah, I agree with you, and that's where I'm at as well. Been retired 14 years from law enforcement. You talk about diverse, but all along, no matter what you do as a profession or as a job, what you would call a job, you always have that. I've always had that mainstay of the music that I've enjoyed. There was never a time in my life where I didn't play music. As a matter of fact, as my children got older, I was very surprised. We were in the car together one time. We're traveling somewhere, and I put some music on that I liked, and it happened to be some 70s music. And all of a sudden, the kids are in the backseat singing word for word these songs. And I'm going, wait a minute. Where'd you guys learn these songs? Well, we like your music too, Dad, And it was like, oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. Because I just tuned it up higher and a little louder, and everybody sang together. But it caused me to think about their joy of music, and that at least they're exploring it more as a young person than I did. I just enjoyed it for myself.
Right.
Now I get to enjoy it and present it to other people as maybe a gift or whatever way. That's the way I look at it anyway. But it's something that I'm sure you will enjoy if you get into the radio side of it, or voiceover, or whatever you're going to do. I've enjoyed it to this point, and we've just begun doing this. So there's a lot of creativity that can go into it, a lot of thought, and the other side of it is knowing that somebody else is going to enjoy it.
Right.
And that's my goal. That's my goal.
Mm-hmm.
So I would hope that whatever time it takes for you to make that decision, that you get into it, and I know you're going to like it. You're that type of person that's going to enjoy something like that.
Definitely, no doubt.
Well, You're welcome to come right here and be a DJ with us. We would love to have you. It would be awesome.
Yeah, that's an open door and invitation. So if you ever make that decision, give us a shout, because we would love to have you with us. I think it all blends well because of your experience in music, not just not just the writing part of it, but the content of it, and it's the part of your heart that is delivered out there. And I read that, and also your voice. I mean, that attenuation, everything that goes along with the personality.
Awesome. Those are very kind words. I think you're probably being too kind, but I certainly appreciate it.
Well, but I see for what it is, and I think it's something that people would enjoy listening, not just a blog, but playing the music and commentary in between once in a while. That'd be a good program.
Well,
Sure.
one of the things on that note, well, thank you first and foremost, John and Cece, for those words. I'll certainly take you up on your offer. But one of the things I've found here in recent years, and I've seen it in the blogs data or statistics, is that people are gravitating more and more towards visual and audio media. Obviously, with social media, it's a much it's easier to take on more passive forms of media than it is to sit down and actually have to pull up an article and then actively read the thing. For example, if you're driving down the street, you're not going to want to be reading an article, obviously, but it's certainly a lot easier for you to pull up your TikTok and watch a video, or listen to something while you're driving, listen to a book or whatever, or listen to a podcast. So I'm finding that the readership has gone down in recent years, and that reduction or that downturn has coincided with the increase in TikTok membership and Instagram and those very video or visual audio forms of entertainment. So it's as a natural outgrowth of that, I'm going to probably have to start exploring more of the radio and voiceover type interests, and maybe not put as much into the writing as I have in recent years.
Well, I mean, I think we all learn, by different ways, right? So some of us are visual, some of us are, we have to hear something, the others want to read. So, so you capture all audience like that. But to say, to talk about what you just said is, I think we're craving in today's society some sort of connection, right? And so I think that's why we're kind of turning towards like the videos and things like that, because we want to connect somehow. And so we're watching TikTok for just a few seconds. We're looking at some zany, video, but we're still feeling like we're connecting with that person, right? And I think that's really what our society is kind of going for, is that connection. And music over the years, that's what we did, right? We listened to songs, and I have a show out now. I'm just doing one day a week on Thursday nights, and it's called Love and Pillow Talk. And what it is, it's kind of like where I answer emails that I get or comments that people make to me, and then I talk about that situation, and then I play a song that I feel might be relatable to that situation, because that's what we did back then, right? That's all we had, our outlet. That's all that we had, was that the music we listened to, it really was the tempo of how we felt. Right. So we would be sad, we'd play a sad song. We wanted to be up, we'd play an up song. And so we had uplifting songs. So we had that kind of thing. And so today's society has changed. They've gone into video, they've done stuff like that. But that doesn't mean that the importance of what we're doing, the music and the writing and all of that, is not important, and that it shouldn't be. That definitely needs to be there, because there are those that want the written word, right? The understanding of the written word. So I think you're bringing a flavor in your articles of knowledge, because we don't always go in depth. We hear the song, we love the tone of the voice, we love maybe what the song is talking about, but we don't know what was in that artist's mind when they created the song, when the song was written, or when the song was played, or distributed, or what memories does it have to the artist. You're bringing that to us, and I think that's very important. And then if you can bring that on on live, on some sort of a DJ status, would be pretty awesome, to do that. But don't sell yourself short. I think what you're doing, and if the viewership is down, it's just a wave, and it will come back again, just like the vinyl records, right? They're coming
I appreciate it. It keeps you honest, and it forces you to be creative, and it forces you to find other ways to generate the readership. I mean, I certainly am not going to give up, so I've looked for, different topics or different ways of presenting the information that I think would be of more interest to the current crop of folks out there. you mentioned, the various ways in which people receive information and learn. An ideal situation for me would be to take the content that I've created on the blog and read that in a podcast, right? Like just, take some of the work that I've already done and, launch the podcast, for example, if that's the medium that I want to go, the path I want to go. And then just, read some of those articles and maybe insert a few snippets of music in there to kind of, to highlight it or to, accentuate it or whatever. And see how that goes.
Yeah, very good idea. I know speak to a project that you were helping a friend with, and you let me know and that putting that together because the chapters of the book happened to be on a certain topic that you found music that coincided with it. I was very intrigued by that creativity because it does show for that topic and the music that was chosen and the artists who originally sang it, they could never imagine that it would ever be tied to a book and to the way it was presented and the way you presented it. That was very creative and very insightful. So
thank you.
I appreciated that.
I appreciate you enjoying that, and I'll just go ahead and put a plug out there for the book.
Go right ahead. Sure.
The artist, the author was a classmate of mine from high school, and we bumped into each other a year or so ago last summer in 2022, and she was, of course, selling her book, and a bunch of us folks, old friends, bought the book. The book is called The Truth About the Lies, and it's written, she's also a trained therapist and a trained psychoanalyst, I believe. I forget the exact title. But she basically wrote this book about women who are in these relationships with men who cheat and who stay in these relationships, who elect not to leave for one reason or another. And then she devotes a chapter to each type of woman that this is, right? So it's not, these are not monoliths. These are not like, there's one type of woman that does this. There are many different types. And
right.
So she wrote the book from that perspective, from the perspective of the various situations that women find themselves in that allow them to stay in these relationships. And so I thought, what a way to, what an entry path for me to maybe try to help her and support her book by using music. And so I dug through my mental archives and through my playlists and whatnot and found a couple of dozen different songs by women about their men or their situations where they were cheated on. And in many of the cases, it was the women elected to stay in the relationships. There's Stand By Your Man, obviously that's a classic one by Tammy Wynette. There's my personal favorite song of all time, which, is sort of a guilty pleasure, but it's also my favorite song for a number of reasons, is Diana Ross's Upside Down, which was sort of an R&B disco funk song of hers from 1980, in which she basically describes that she knows that the man is cheating on her, but she's, no one makes her feel like he does. And so she's staying with him, it's, I just found that there were so many examples of those out there that I could tie into the various chapters of this friend's book. Her name is Sharon Matthews. And she, of course, wrote the book. I thought the book was excellent. And, so I made that connection and shared it with her. And she was just, intrigued by it. And
I think it was very interesting, very well done. And hopefully we can get her on here on the station. I would love to be able to.
Yeah, I'd look forward to watching that.
Yeah,
definitely.
That should be great.
Yeah.
It would be great. The time has gone by so quickly. We're going to have to close it down. Oh, I hate that.
I enjoyed this.
Good.
Yeah,
Good.
that was great.
It was great having you, DJ. I'll tell you what, if anything, I'm so happy that two minds have kind of come together here in this world that is so upsetting sometimes, and that we have diverse backgrounds, but we have similar tastes, and I think that speaks well for the human race. There's still a chance for us, I guess.
There is. I appreciate that and agree 100%.
So again, you guys check out his blog, which is drrobbblog.com. So check it out because it's a great music blog. You put a lot of work into it, a lot of time, you can tell, and much love and passion. We can tell that goes into it. So thank you so much. That is so great. So you guys also listen to John Thomas's new show, Music for Your Soul. It's going to be on, of course, on our favorite station, goingsolomedia.com. And it's Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. So check that out 3 days a week for some great music. And I love it. Thank you so much for being with us here today.
Thank you,
Thank you
Cece.
for having me.
Okay.
We appreciate it.
Well, thank you. So any last words, guys, before we close out?
No,
Nope.
Listen to a good song and keep it in your heart.
Sounds
Awesome.
good. All right. Bye, everyone. Until next time.